Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you all to another Q&A session. Today I have with me the lead actress of Eye to Eye, Miss Rachel Arac. And we're going to have a good time, I hope. And I'm just going to ask you a few questions. We're going to reminisce about the film. It's been a while since I've spoken to you about anything. So this should be fun. All
Should
right.
be. Yeah.
Okay. So my first question to you is, how you been?
I've been good.
You been good?
Yeah. Aside from the sort of Armageddon times we're living in, things have been great. I've been good. I've been busy.
Busy's good, right? I
How
know
have you
that you do, I know that you do some stuff with I don't know if it's I don't know if you're a political satirist, political humorist. I don't know what you want to call yourself, but I definitely want to touch on that.
been?
Um
I'd say satirist for sure.
Satirist?
Yeah. I like looking at global affairs and geopolitics and, thinking about all the things that we've seen throughout history and then drawing parallels to what we see today. A lot of people get a huge kick out of seeing those connections. And there's always humor there because in the absurd is where we find the humor.
And we're going to talk about that because I know that's I know that you've almost like branded yourself into doing something like that, and we'll talk about branding and that stuff in a few minutes. But first, like I said, we on the channel we've been showing some of my short films. We recently showed Eye to Eye, which was my
Mhm.
second film ever. I spoke to one of the associate producers last week, and I'm glad to have you on this week. Um, how did that come to you? Do you remember that?
I think
How did that fall on your lap?
I fell in my lap. Thank you, Mo. I was auditioning. I was pounding the pavement in New York City. And I think I had walked into a room where you were casting a film in the past. And then I think we bumped into each other at a film festival or something. And the next time I saw you, I think maybe it was a little bit more of a spark. And from there, we made eye to eye.
Yeah, that's that.
We saw eye to eye.
Yeah,
When we made eye to eye.
no pun intended. But yeah, I think that I think you nailed it. Yeah, I think you did come to a few auditions. I had seen you. I was like, man, why is this girl not getting cast or whatever? And I was like, I think I got the perfect vehicle for her, and this was it. So then then I approached you with it. In that film, there was a lot of I think very little script,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really like an exercise for me. It was more like a improvisation. It was more improvisational, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I did with the actors was I said, here's the sentence, and this is how the scene ends. And then I would assign that line to one of the actors. And then you had to, once that line was said, I would say, I would give it a few seconds and I would say, cut. Um, how did you feel about that? Besides the fact that you were like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, to this day, it was one of the most interesting pieces I ever shot, and we did improvise a lot. You showed us the treatment, and we knew kind of the starting point and the ending point, and it was sort of up to us how we got there, which was really exciting and made for a lot of just being right in there in the moment and discovering the scene and the connection between myself and Andy, who was my counterpart. Um, just in the moment, and it felt very authentic. And I think we did a couple of shots, but rather than having to stick to a script and having 10 shots just to get everything right, we had 9 opportunities to play, which was really fun. And I think it made for a really authentic, genuine, poignant piece.
Mm-hmm. You still get that when people see that? Do they still? Um, how do they respond to that? To that? To you being in it and to the film in general?
I think it's interesting because I think a lot of times when people see the finished product, they don't always understand where it came from, or even, understand how you shot something, or how something was born or came to be. Um, Most people understand that when you make a film, you have a script, you have producers, you have editors, a lot of times that are making huge decisions as to what that final piece looks like. And I think that absolutely was the case with Eye to Eye. I think the response that I get is that it's very tender, it's very soft and gentle, and very poignant.
I know that you had to shoot certain scenes like with the older actors, Gordana and Ray Ladera.
Yeah.
And I know there was a little moment there, like little. It was still a tender moment, right? He's coming in from the rain and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You had any trepidation about that particular scene, or how did you just say, just what, I'm just gonna go for it? Or you guys said, let's just go for it.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I do remember having some trepidation because my main counterpart was Andy, and I knew I had worked with Andy in the past. I knew the chemistry that we had on screen. With Ray, first of all, I only met him when doing Eye. But I think what was so interesting is the story is that he's an older version of Andy, and that really felt true in the moment. I was really looking at him as though he really were that older version of Andy's character. So it felt very natural, and any trepidation or hesitation I had evaporated the moment we started rolling.
Nice. Good. That's good to know. And any advice in regards to actors that might have that because I think lately we've been treading a little line here where people are becoming more true to themselves, and they're like, it's not really the character, or I'm not going to kiss that particular person, or I'm just going to stick to my morals or values. And again, I want to say that this piece it wouldn't have worked really, right? If the chemistry isn't there, or you wouldn't take that leap of faith. Like you said, you saw, you as the character saw the younger Andy in that particular character, which is really what the movie's about, right? Like, when in love, who do you really see? Um, how do you feel about that? Like, people now lately, they just, even when they read the script, they want to say, no, I'm not doing that. I can't do that, or I won't do that. And here's a piece, right? That's not even, I wouldn't say this movie's like, oh my God, it's rated R. And it's like, there was, sexual tension or anything of that sort in it. But lately people have been putting like their own beliefs into I think that sometimes they bring that into the audition room, or even when they get the part, then when they get the part, they're like, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing this, even though they already know what that part entailed. What do you
Have you gotten into, Mo?
What?
What kind of business have you gotten into?
No. I'm just saying that lately. I mean,
I'm teasing you. I think there's two schools of thought. One, old school, back in the day, you were a vehicle for a script, and the writers and the director's word was God. And if you strayed from that as the actor, you weren't doing your job. I think as the technology and the world and our access to information has evolved, I think people are seeing themselves differently. I think now with social media, virtually everybody has an online presence of some kind, or at least many people that didn't before do. So I think people have this perception of themselves that they really want to stay true to. And I think ultimately that can be a really good thing. because I think in order to be an amazing, truthful artist, you have to be true to yourself and you have to honor and live in your own truth and your own authenticity. So, to the extent that somebody finds that path that is on the piece of paper inconsistent with where they think they need to head or divergent from another direction that they feel they need to go into, I suppose that's their truth. And I think the world of acting and the world of artistry has changed as we know it. There's a very blurred line now between what's real and private and intimate and sacred for ourselves and what we show the rest of the world. And for a lot of people, that barrier no longer exists.
You said they're very beautiful. And the reason I say that is because I know one time I offered a role to he wanted to act, right? And this gentleman says to me, "Yo, Mo, I can't do that." And I was like, "But don't you want to challenge yourself?" And then he goes, "Yeah." But he goes, "But I can't." And obviously, this film I'm going to be showing it soon. Also, um, I think the film is called Rattled, and it's without giving too much away, one of the antagonists is really someone who abducts a child. And I was giving this to an actor, and he goes, "Yo, Mo, I love the script and everything, but I can't do that." It goes back to what you were saying, like, at least he didn't wait till I say action and to tell me I can't do this. At least he didn't take on the role. At least he was, like you were just saying, true to himself to say, "Ah, that's just not, I got to pass on that because that's not something, like you were saying before, that's not who I am as a performer. That's not who I am as an actor. And I need to know that, yeah, I'm not going to do that. There's no way I'm going to be able to pull that off, because he wanted to be true to his inner self or to himself as a person, a human being, and so forth. You know,
Yeah, interesting.
trust me, we live, like you said, we're living in some interesting times, and I like to challenge actors, right? I don't like to give them. I like to get them out of their comfort zone, right? Because if this person can do that role, I want them to do the other role, right? And the person that's the goody two shoes, if that person has done too many whatever roles, then I'd rather them switch and say, okay, this is probably the more challenging role for you, or you'll be more interesting in this as opposed to that because you've already done that, you know.
Yeah.
But I trust me, I respect the fact that he did say that. He didn't just put me in a position where I was like, oh my God, at least he just turned down the project and said, no, I think you're better off looking for another actor or.
I think as a filmmaker, you're in a really challenging role. You're charting the course forward and you don't have a map, and you are a map maker for people. So you have to guide them in the direction where you see, where you have this vision and this end story in your mind. And I think with a lot of times with creative genius, people can't always see the process. They can only see the result. But I think, you are steering the ship, and that's a really unique position to be in, because somebody else may just see what's on the paper and be able to value judge or something. So, yeah, I think keep doing what you're doing. I think without you, pushing it forward, I think people don't evolve, and we'll never get out.
Reminiscing a little bit about the film, is there any scene from that movie that you go, damn, every time I see that, or, it gets to me, or that rings that rings real to me, or any particular scene that when you see it, you go,
I think the scene at the ice cream stand, where I'm first interacting with Andy's character. And I think everybody on planet Earth can relate to that moment when you have butterflies in your stomach and you see somebody and you strike up a conversation with them, and it's exciting and scary, and it's just the beginning of endless possibilities. Every time I see that, I just remember those feelings, and I think everybody can resonate with that.
That's interesting, and that's actually the first scene in the film. Yeah. Um, moving, shifting gears a little bit here. I know that you're involved in a lot of things, um, including doing the satir, the being a political satirist. But before I get to that, have you auditioned? Have you gone out? Have you um, after Eye to Eye, was there any role or any film or any something that was of impact that we should be looking for? In regards to you acting or something coming.
I think the most fun that I've had was, doing the political commentary and the political satire. I think my goal is to bring levity and humor to very serious, sometimes very sad and distressing stories, um, but also to help people draw parallels and connections and help us learn from the past and recognize patterns and understand and recognize truth when we see it and recognize mistruth when we see it.
How
So
did how did you get into that and say, you know what, this is going to be my niche and this is where I'm going to go with this? Because let me tell you that she's kind of wacky and I like her a lot. I'm like, yo, she's there. But I guess that's part of the I guess that's part of the charm, right? Because she's way out there and we get it, because the way you're doing it is like, isn't this silly? But we get that you're making a point. Where did you
yeah,
get this thing in your head that you said, this is something I really want to pursue, or I like this character?
I had read for what was going to be a political talk show, a la The Daily Show. And as I was going back and forth with the creators of that, they decided to go in the direction of a smartphone app, which was the precursor to the functionality that we see today on TikTok or Instagram Reels. So the idea was to sort of have a interactive platform where users could engage with content and interact with their creators on the platform. And I was essentially hired to populate that platform with content. As we were
So
going
she
back,
was born. Wait, so the she was born out of that, or this is something that, because
yeah,
you pursued this, like you've made this like your brand, in other words, right?
hmm
So that came first, and then
so the topic that I was assigned was world news and geopolitics. So as I was working on these scripts with them back and forth, we started playing around with the idea of doing this tongue-in-cheek Jersey Shore character, um, of which I'm not, but it sort of resonated with people because a lot of the topics were serious, like I said, and even morbid at times. You're talking about, all the tragedies and atrocities that happen throughout the globe, and, you know, dark, sad things. But to do it with a character that can bring humor to it, because without humor, it's absolutely unbearable. Some of the things that we see and some of the the things people can do to other human beings is unconscionable. But I think if we add that layer of humor to it, people can learn from it and ultimately make the world a better place.
Do you want to see this? Do you see this character? Because nowadays, I mean, we do have a short attention span, right? The fact that even sometimes I want to do this like 40 minutes or 55 minutes or whatever it is, people are looking at me like, yo, Mo, seriously? Why? You know,
Yeah.
and I like the idea of, well, let's just pause, let's just talk. I mean, let's get to know you, let's get to know the guest, you know. And in order to do that, I can't do that in 2 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like the idea of conversation. Where did it go? You know, like, you know, talk shows used to be one where people would really talk. Now it's just little segments and it's all fluff, you know, and it's not really, you know, and I don't want to put anybody down because I'm not into that, but late night is not what it is or what it used to be, right?
Yeah.
Those talk shows are no longer really talk shows. You know, they're really segmented and fragmented into something like a template, and that's what they're really going with. So do you see this particular? I know you do the 2, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute, whatever, and they're great. But do you see yourself maybe putting this character in a situation, putting this character in a film, or do you see that for this character?
I would love to do longer form content and put that world, in a longer living environment. But like you said, I think we are in this TikTok generation where everybody is rapidly cycling through so much content. And the news cycles even it's there's not even a news cycle anymore. It's just a constant updating of information, whether or not there's new information or,
Mhm.
changes in any information.
Sometimes it's just I'm looking at stuff and wait, I already heard that, but somebody else is spitting it out, like making it their own, and I already heard that. Somebody else spit that out already, so it's
Yeah.
for me, it's not that original because I already heard it and I've already seen it, and they're trying to pass it as something of their own, which is another thing that's happening also in the TikTok world. I don't know how you're
Yeah.
feeling about this. Um,
It's
have you confronted that where people are they say this girl is onto something? I'm gonna take her material.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. There's actually a big case right now where the New York Times has sued OpenAI for their use of New York Times articles in training their models. It's generative AI. OpenAI's response was to New York Times, prove that you actually have original works there. And I think what they're getting at is the news cycle is so rapid, and that one person, or excuse me, one media outlet publishes one thing, within minutes it's picked up by 20 other outlets, regardless of whether or not it's true. And then that cycle continues and goes through. And then if there's an issue, they'll issue a retraction or correction. But almost nobody notices that. They're just now on to just keeping up with the rest of the news. So I think with the democratization and accessibility of AI tools, what we're going to see is a lot, even more of a just explosion of content, and a lot of IP and intellectual property issues are going to come out of that. Where that's going to go is anybody's guess. But I think after that pendulum swings back, I think people are really going to turn toward quality over quantity. And then I think it's going to be like finding needles in haystacks and just searching for great quality that is thought provoking, that people took time to create. And that was created by humans, because human ingenuity and human creativity will never be outsourced by AI.
But then, okay, but let's backtrack a little bit. How then do you, Rachel Arac, how do you protect your Spitfire a political analyzation of the current climate. And because you're relevant and you stay up to date, how do you protect, your creativity and your works in regards to somebody saying, "Oh, I heard Rachel do this. This is timely. Let me do this. Let me do my take on what I saw her do." You know what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say? Like,
absolutely. I mean, all the great arts of the world is copycat. The copyright is the right to copy. And, there's really subtle nuances as to what's considered, plagiarism and what's considered artistic liberty and, building on top of something else. So I don't have time, bandwidth, resources, or anything like that to traffic the web all day and police for content that's imitating me. And I think if somebody can do it and they do it in their own unique, original way, more power to them. I'll just file a lawsuit. No, but I mean, I think that's what every artist struggles with, and a
right.
lot of people put their work out there because they're afraid that people are going to take it and rip it off and adapt it without giving credit, and that's especially now with just the sheer volume of what's out there. It's a tough world out there. But I do think that the United States and the European Union and et cetera, are going to probably pretty quickly start regulating the use of AI, which in turn I think is probably going to get us a little bit stronger intellectual property protections. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know the answer to that. I think that's something that I've struggled with and that a lot of people struggle with. But at the end of the day, you can just keep it on a hard drive or you can send it out to the world.
We've been talking about it, but how do we find it? How do we find you in this, in your role as this political satirist? Where do we find you?
I think the best way for people to find me is to follow me on Instagram. I'm at Rachel Arac, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Trying to always keep current and post interesting things that offer a little more levity and light, in light of the crazy times that we're in, and just trying to find humor and absurdity in it all.
I know people are trying to find their niche, right? Like you were saying that I don't think you kind of almost like branding yourself, your art, your comedy, your writing, to being this political satirist. What's your advice to individuals who might want to get into this as actors first, and then B, as someone who says, you know what, I just can't quite find it in me to continue to audition and pursue, and then and how to, or maybe give them the inspiration to do what you do, which is, you know what, I mean, this is the way of, maybe this is the way of the future. I know an actor who said, and I had this conversation recently with him. He says to me, "Yo, Mo, I've worked in movies, I've worked in independent filmmaking, and all of a sudden I decided to do this little 2-minute skit. And I put it on, I don't know if he put it on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it was. I think it was TikTok. And he goes, and there it was. I had like 45,000 views, and nobody knew me from the other stuff that I was doing, the actor, and all of a sudden I did this silly stuff on TikTok and I've been getting like 45, 50,000 views." And then he goes, should I, in the back of his mind, he's saying, should I be doing more of that? Here I am thinking I'm this actor, all of a sudden is that's what it has come down to, that maybe I should have been doing more of that. What do you say to actors, or what's your advice to them, in regards to pursuing the dream and also trying to brand themselves as
I think,
someone who's already done it and doing it?
yeah, I think first and foremost is to play and have fun. And that's, I think, how you explore your kind of authentic truth and your unique niche. There's so many different fun tools and functionalities on those social media platforms that make it really easy to come up with something that's quite, um, elaborate or well produced. Now, like when I was doing a lot of these videos, we didn't have those tools. I actually had to do my makeup by hand. I didn't have a filter.
Right.
But I mean,
and now you can get a filter.
it's so accessible that I do recommend that people have fun with it. And just be mindful of, what your end goal is. And, quite frankly, it can also be a bit intimidating and jarring to post something and that you're just having fun with, that you expect, just to kind of go and be forgotten about in a few days or something, and then to log back into those platforms and see that, thousands of people have viewed and commented and or told you how, wonderful it is, or what an idiot you are. So it goes both ways. So I think you just, anything you put on there, you be mindful that a lot of people may see it. So it might define you later. It might pigeonhole you, which could be a good thing if you found your niche. If not, then you'll have to find a way to navigate back out of that. But I do think the tools are here to stay, and I think that there's a lot of fun to be had with them.
Just out of curiosity, if I remember one of the directors from the show Glee. His name escapes me right now, and I love his work. That's what happens when you get a little older. But he had the tendency to say, "If I could write for you, what what do you want somebody to write for Rachel Arac?"
Oh, no, what a question. I think humor and something that's truthful, but something that arrives to the truth with humor. And I think something that is inclusive and helps bring people along for that journey. Um, I don't know.
When you say inclusive, what do you mean by that? That's a word that everybody's throwing out there. What do you mean inclusive? What do you mean by
I
that?
suppose I mean something that with each scene, with each word, with each place, it invites the viewer along for the ride. Meaning, how do we speak to a lot of people at once? Some things are very niche. Horror film is very niche. Not everybody likes horror, and not everybody can go on that journey and suspend their belief to get into a horror film. Not everybody likes sci-fi for the same reasons, and not everybody likes fantasy for the same reasons. But I think there are some things. I think of the show Modern Family or Seinfeld, where they're so relatable and they find truth in each of those characters that are representations of so many different people from so many different, corners of the world, that it really is an invitation to bring people along for a fun ride.
I like what you said there. But you said Modern Family, you said Seinfeld. Um, and I'm thinking back also, like in the days of All in the Family, Taxi,
Yeah.
those days when some people go, "What did they really say that?" Yeah, they did. Did they really get away with it? Yeah, and that was back then. Um, are you trying to put a filter? Are you, when you do your thing, are you saying to yourself, maybe I shouldn't say that because that might offend that group or that might offend this group?
The time.
Say that.
120% of the time. In fact, after the election in 2016 was, you know, I'll get in trouble for saying this, but it was funny. I mean, it's ridiculous how the next 4 years happened. In 2020, it was kind of like, oh, shoot, we're kind of like not in funny anymore. It became very serious and it became very easily to get canceled or to offend or to say the wrong thing because virtually everything was the wrong thing to say. Because I think what we saw was just a complete fractionalization of society. And, I think a little bit as a result of social media and the news cycle and how they were feeding information to people and creating division. We do have our media companies to thank for that. Um, and a lot of people have lost their livelihoods because of that. So it's a very serious thing. Um, Aside from doing that, I think maybe America is having a rebirth where we're going into the direction of redefining American values and redefining what it means to be an American and hopefully laying the foundation for what we can build a cohesive society back onto. Um, Look, no country, no people, no civilization is without its faults and its ugly blemishes in history. But I don't think that's the point. I think the point is we take the good, we learn from the good, we rise up and we build on top of that. We can't go back and change the past, nor are many people who even lived or committed certain acts or atrocities even alive today. So it's very counterproductive to go back and try to rehash the past. It's inconsistent with being productive and having a fruitful, cohesive society. But I think the more we just think about, we can collate what are the things that are American values, what are really important, to people. We do believe in equality. We do believe in individual liberties, which people in a lot of places in the world don't have. Mm-hmm. And from there, we have to rebuild. It's a lot of work and it's going to take maybe a generation to really get back into, a safe place where people feel included and accepted and, banishing this just sort of lack of critical thinking, which makes people really susceptible to propaganda from foreign governments and, this rapid media cycle that doesn't have really people's best interest in mind. So, yeah, I think you do have to think about offending people, but I think it also gives us an opportunity to really get down to the essential values and, what is true and really try to live in that place of honesty and truthfulness and productivity and the values that we want to see embodied more in the world. So I think it's a long journey. I think it's going to take a lot of hard work from a lot of people.
So, which comedians or which individuals are you looking at that inspire you? That you, damn, that is hilarious. I love that.
I'm a Lucy fan. I love Lucy, Lucille Ball. She's just like the classic great. I think Amy Schumer's really funny just because how real she is and how not seriously she takes herself. I find the Kardashians really funny, though I don't know that they intend to be funny.
Just when I was liking you. The Kardashians come up.
They're funny. I think they're funny. I really think they've played a lot of people in a really brilliant way that's been very profitable for themselves.
Right. You got to, but you see, you got to give them their due because you said the magic word, profitable, and because they're profitable, that also makes them smart. So I got to give it to them too. So um, I was going to say something. I like to give a shout out to individuals that people are not even on the radar. Sometimes it could be a playwright, it could be another actor, it could even be a political person. Who out there that's under the radar that is not it's not a household name, that when this person, he or she or whomever, is on stage or is doing something, Rachel Arac, goes out of her way to say it's going to be a good time, it's going to be great, whatever he or she does. And I wish more people knew of this person. Who would that person be?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like I would have to look up some of the accounts I follow on Instagram because there's some really funny people. And I know them by face and by brand and by character. Uh, so let me drop
Now one comes up.
to you later.
What, to be continued? What the hell?
I'll send a postcard. I could look it up.
Go ahead. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes because I dropped my phone. This gives me an opportunity to pick it up.
Drop your phone. I'll pick mine up.
This way, you could give us a name. Hey, it's a music interlude. And as my lady friend is doing this, Miss Rachel Arac, let me just say that I think it's important to give people a shout out. I think on this, as I'm doing this, we've shouted out a couple of people. Marilyn Torres comes to mind. She's a stand-up comedian, and she does one-woman shows, and she's incredibly talented. Felix Rojas is going to have, he's a playwright. He's going to be having a show in October. This is happening in July of 24. So in October of 24, he's got something called A Day in the Crib that he's written, and he's going to be putting up at the Producers Club. Someone else that comes to mind is Liza Colon Sayas, who can currently be seen in Hulu's The Bear. And as Rachel Arac gets ready, I'm also going to give another shout out to a couple of people. Carmen Rivera Tirado has written a play. She's a playwright, a sensational playwright. We were talking about politics with Rachel Arac, and she's definitely has her own take on politics. And hopefully one day, who knows, I'll ask her to be a part of this. Pero Carmen Rivera Tirado is currently doing a play right now that she wrote. It's called Julia de Burgos, Child of Water, and it stars actress Frances Lozada, who has done great work in the past in the theater, as well as film. She's worked in 2 films by Daryl Denner, who's an independent writer-director, and she stars in 2 of his films, Fist of Love, and I know the title's a little weird, and also Unspoken. And you can see both of those films on Tubi. So there you go. That's my shout out. So I gave you 3 as Rachel Arac gets ready. So I gave you Carmen Rivera Tirado, playwright, currently Julia de Burgos, Child of Water, starring Frances Lozada, who's a great actress. And she stars in the title role. That is currently playing, I believe, on East 4th Street during the month of July. So look it up. And I gave Daryl Denner a shout out because Frances Lozada has starred in 2 of his films and he's also a colleague of mine and an independent filmmaker. So, are you ready, Miss Rachel?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I have one.
You saw how I did that? You saw how I did that? That was pretty cool. Go ahead.
Uh,
What a filler. Go ahead.
yeah. Elika Laban. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but she's a political activist and
Say
so
that name again?
Elika Laban.
Elika Laban?
She's an Iranian political activist and an influencer, and she's just such interesting perspectives. She's so brilliant. She's been on a lot of the big news outlets lately.
Satirist like yourself, or
No, she's serious.
okay?
She's, I think, an aspect of me without the satirist and without the humor and absurdity. But I mean, just really, really interesting perspectives on things. And of course, Mo Zapata.
Yeah, okay. Cheap plug. That didn't happen. I didn't pay her anything to say that. But yes, I'm still, yes, working my butt off. Yes. We're coming down to a little close, and I like to finish with a couple of questions, like spitfire questions. All right, you ready for that? You ready? Here we go. Here we go. Ready? Favorite word. Your favorite word.
Water.
You want to follow that up?
Ocean.
Pero why? Why water?
Water is so versatile and it's the lifeblood. It's 80% of what we are. And nobody doesn't feel more relaxed around water.
Favorite film.
Favorite film. Anything by Steven Spielberg. I think Inception's really good.
Which one?
Inception.
That's not Steven Spielberg.
I know, but I think Inception's really good.
Okay. I won't discuss Inception, but okay. Best piece of advice that you've ever heard.
Just have more fun.
Who told you that? Who said that?
Nobody. No, I never did.
Wait,
Don't work.
Who said that? Wait, have more fun. You said who said that?
Nobody said it.
Nobody said it, but that's your.
Should say it. The world would be a better place.
I like that. If they're seeing you for the first time, what do you want people to know about you? If they're meeting Rachel Arac for the first time, obviously I know a little bit about you, and I've always found you interesting. But if they're meeting you, like this is the first time that they're meeting this woman, what do you want them to take away from this?
I'd say take a leap of faith and come on a journey with me.
I like that. And ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I think it's a good note to end. Take a leap of faith and take that journey with Miss Rachel Arac. Take that journey with My Final Shot Productions. I think this week we're also going to be premiering A Matter of Seconds. I think that's probably going to take place tomorrow. I don't know when this is going to air. If we could air it right before, it'll be great. If we could do both things back to back, it'll be great. But the film is called A Matter of Seconds. That's the next one that's on the list. This has been good, Rachel. I'm glad we had this little chat.
Hats off to you, Mo. It's so great to see you. And I think you come up with some of the most interesting, creative ideas and concepts I've ever seen. And I hope you keep doing what you're doing. And I can't wait to see everything that you come up with in the future, because it's always just so thought-provoking. And I hope you keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And the same goes for you. I'm looking forward to seeing more of you. And who knows, maybe we got reconnect and do something together.
Absolutely.
Think
It's
so.
time.
It's time, definitely time. It's been a while, yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to say good night to my audience. Have a good time. Please be with Rachel Arac on her journey and check us out. All right. Good night, folks.
Night.